Hi there again.
Hey, good morning, Avi. How are you?
Is somebody asleep? Oh, he woke up.
How are things?
I'm fine, thank you. Still got a cold a little bit, but I'm awake. That's a start.
Well, you sound much better than you did on Thursday, that's for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you
Okay,
again for adjusting to all this, and I'm glad to be with you. So,
absolutely. Thank you
yeah.
very much. What we're going to do is we're going to allow the students to ask questions unless you have something that you want to talk about first.
Now, are we the same group as last time?
Same group as before, yes.
Okay. So we got a sense of things and know what to do. I thought your questions were unusually good. So, are you able to see me okay? Just I made some adjustments in my room, so.
We can see, but we have the lights on in our classroom, so it's kind of glaring on our LCD projector a little bit.
Okay, it could be a little darker, but I'm okay. Let's see what happens here when we stand up. So,
Okay, so we're going to open it up to students first, and then afterwards, if we have a little bit of time, there are some adults in the room. If
okay,
they have questions, we'll field them to you as well, okay?
go, go, go.
All right, perfect. Anyone want to go first? Don't make me pick on them. Allison. We moved the microphone closer, so you should be able to hear us quite a bit better than you did last time.
That's okay.
All right.
Good morning, Allison. How are you today?
Good. Um, Having authored 70 plus books, do you find a favorite book that you've written or most enjoyed writing?
Okay, let me hear the question again.
Louder, Allison.
Having authored 70 plus books, do you have a favorite book that you've written or most enjoyed writing?
You know, bear in mind, Allison, that I've been writing, I think my first book was published in 1970. And I like to think that the work has progressed as I've changed and, so to speak, grown up. And uh, I don't keep all the books in my head, if you will. If you've read a book I wrote 20 years ago, you'd probably know it better than I do. So, what happens is that I focus so much on the newest book, and that becomes the book that I really want to work on. And that's the book that I think of as my favorite. So, I have a brand new book. It's about, takes place during the American Revolution. And I think it's a pretty good book, and we're trying to finish it up. And then I have another one that I'm working on, and I'm excited about that as a possibility. So I think of those as my best books. Are they my best books? Uh, I don't know, probably not, but it helps to think so because I work so much on them all the time. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Allison.
We're going to try shutting off the lights and see if you can see a little bit better, okay?
Okay. Now I see nobody. Okay, that's better.
Okay, Kyle's up next.
Hello.
Hi there. What does
Um,
A87 mean on your chest?
I don't know.
It's terrible sound.
Okay, tell me your name, please.
um, Kyle.
Hi.
Here's my question. How different is it writing for adolescents today than it was in your early career?
Well, I'll give you an odd answer. First of all, my own kids, there are six of them. They're all grown up, and they don't live at home anymore. So the first thing is that I don't have as many kids around my life as I used to, right? You're welcome to move in if you want to be a subject for a book. Uh, so I tend to write, I think, more historical fiction because I can do the research on that because I'm not so knowledgeable of of your slang, your way of talking, your way of being, as I had been when I had kids around my house. So does that make some sense? I think in other words, I'm not around the same people as I used to be. Okay. So maybe I should invite myself into your school and pretend I'm one of your students or something like that. And then I can wear a shirt that says A88 or something like that, right? Okay. Okay. Thanks much.
If I could just ask a real quick question. You mentioned that you do research for historical fiction, and we talked about that last time. Can you readdress how much research you do for one of your books?
Well, it depends a lot on the book. Uh, the current book that deals with the American Revolution, there are two phases about it. One has to do with during the American Revolution, the British occupied New York City, and they did so throughout the 7-year war, 8-year war. And they also ran prisons there. And they were pretty horrendous, terrible, terrible, terrible places. And that's the first part. So you do general research. You go to, you look up and find diaries, letters. These are published. I rarely do original research, but I go through published researches, and it's very easy to get access to books and research through the internet. Now, I did one book that dealt with the American Revolution, and it dealt with the first battle between two ships that were made of iron, the Monitor and the Merrimack, as it was called. And in that case, I went to a museum in the state of Virginia where they had archives, letters from crew members. And there I did some original research, and that was tremendous fun. But I tried to be as accurate as possible. And depending on, then you choose what you want to put in. Crucial is what people eat, what people dress like. But the hardest thing, of course, is to get a sense of how people think at that time, at a different time than our own. And that's the trickiest part of research. But you do it as best you can. And that's, you just keep reading. If you look behind me, you see lots of books. There are thousands of books in my house, and I would say most of them come about from the research that I do on the given subject. And I build up a library on the subject, and that would help. I've thought about writing a book. As you guys probably know, was war between Canada and the United States. Did you know that? And there wasn't Canada then, it was British occupied Canada. But there were battles on the Great Lakes, and I remember the first time I was in Quebec, and beautiful city, but all the walls were facing south to keep out American troops. I thought that was interesting. So it'd be fun to write a book about that. So who would I have winning in a war between Canada and the United States?
Do you really want to ask?
Well, sure. No, but it would be an interesting subject, wouldn't it?
It would for sure. Derek's next.
Hi, Derek. How are you?
Good. How do you find reading competes with children's attention these days versus things like television and video games?
Say it again, please.
How do you find reading competes with children's attention these days versus things like television and video games?
Well, there's nothing I can do about the fact that you watch television and video games. I just have to write a book that's good enough to make you want to read it. I can't force you to, right? So one of the crucial things that you spend a lot of time on, believe it or not, is the first page of a book. That's where you get into the book, right? But think about it. How do you choose a book to read? Or are you simply only reading the things that are required in school? What goes through your mind when you pick up a book? You look at the cover, right? You look at the title. How do you decide whether you want to read it? Or maybe you decide you don't want to read it.
Yeah, I don't really like reading that much.
Okay, well, that all the more so because I have to make it as attractive as possible to get you to read it. So the first sentence, the first paragraph, really, really crucial, okay? So, yeah, that's part of the problem, getting you to pay attention. So I can't make you. I can't make you. That's the best answer I can give.
Alyssa's coming up now.
Is that Melissa?
Alyssa.
Alyssa. Okay, that's a pretty name.
When looking at coming up with an idea, how does popular culture impact your ideas?
How does popular ideas, let's say it again.
When coming up with an idea, how does popular culture impact your ideas?
Ah, well, popular culture is extraordinarily powerful, and it enters into all our thoughts, all our thinking. Um, I try not to choose subjects. I'm not a commercial writer in the sense that I know that you're interested in vampires, say, and I'm going to write a book about vampires. So I don't go about my writing. I have to be interested in the subject myself. And hopefully I can make the subject interesting so that you will engage with it. But there's no question that popular ideas enter into books simply because that's the chemistry of the moment. But I don't try to court them. Hopefully I can write a story that you'll be engaged with. That's the best I can do. Thank you.
Okay. How would you feel about the possibility of your books becoming movies?
Well, tell me your name again.
Riley?
Riley. They often talk about movies. I have about 3 or 4 contracts to make movies out of my books. I have no problem with that. The problem is movies cost a fortune to make, 40, 50, 60 million dollars, and so far it just hasn't happened. But if you've got an extra 60 million bucks lying around your house, you're welcome to make one. So
I wish.
me too.
Hi.
Hi, tell me your name.
Alice.
Hi, Alex.
Alec.
Alice.
No. Alec.
Alice.
A-L-E.
I get it. Okay.
Okay.
I'll
My question is,
I'll call you Ariel.
okay. If your books ever did become movies, how much creative control would you want over their production?
I would have absolutely none. Uh, they won't. They won't make a movie in which I have control. The fact of the matter is, when they approach me to make a movie, and they do, the first thing I say to them is, you can go ahead with this, and we can sign a contract and so forth, but I want nothing to do with it because it's a waste of my time. They don't make the movies, uh, and it just doesn't happen. But no, they would not give me any control whatsoever. So, anyway. Like I'd give the control to you. You could be in charge. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mackenzie's coming up next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell me your name, please.
Mackenzie.
Mackenzie. Okay.
Perseverance seems to be a major theme that we found overwhelming in your books. From Crispin losing his mother and being hunted to the obstacles that Poppy faces in the Poppy series. Why do you think that perseverance seems to be so prevalent in your books?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. Was not aware of that. Partly it's because the way a novel is constructed. You create a story in which the character is trying to go from here to there, so to speak, or discover this and that. Um, in the world that you live today, um, basically your world is controlled by adults. Wouldn't you agree? And how do you get around that, or through that, or over that, or under that, to get what you want as a young person? So here comes a theme, I think, that's prevalent in all books that deal with young people in one way or another. So I'm not so sure it's my subject as it is the subject that you deal with in your life. I mean, for example, when you confront something that is controlled by adults, how do you deal with it? Do you just give up, or do you try to succeed and get to your goal in a different way? You know? Okay, well,
They just give up. They
they
just give up.
just do what the teacher wants. I understand how that works. Okay, good. Okay,
Hi.
what's your name, please?
Hannah.
Hi, Hannah.
We've learned that setting directly influences the mood of the story. How important is it for you as a writer to paint the setting of a story so the reader can visualize what is happening?
It's extremely important for me to create a story with lots of detail. You want to use all the senses. How does a thing smell? How does it feel? Um, what are the sensations that one experiences? I was writing something yesterday, and the kid comes home after a hard day or whatever it is, and he walks into his house, and nobody is there in his apartment. But he smells the house, and he smells the different elements that are there. The fact that his father drinks a lot of coffee, the fact that his mother uses a certain kind of cologne or perfume. And these things are comforting. So by noting those things, it creates a feeling of place and comfort. So one needs to be very alert to all of the senses when you tell a story. I think it helps the reader enormously in getting a feel for what's going on. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could just jump in, descriptive language obviously plays a major role in setting up the setting. How much is too descriptive language? How do you choose the language that you have, that you use in order to appeal to these young guys?
Well, I would say that's the problem of writing, which is to say you could write 10 pages of description. The job of the writer is to find the essence, to do it in such a way. There are different styles of writing. I like, believe it or not, a sort of minimalist style in which I can get the most from the least. So I'm constantly going back and cutting back and cutting back to get to the essence of the moment. Particularly young readers today, they don't have a lot of patience for a great deal of detail. They like the detail, they want the detail, but they don't want to be overwhelmed with it. So it's a delicate and it's a crucial choice that every writer makes.
Okay, sorry, just one sec, rather. Just to piggyback on that, there's a question that we came up with that kind of fits. So, McKenna, you're up.
Hi.
Hi, McKenna.
You mentioned in your last Skype test that you've written books 60 to 70 times. How frustrating is that to you?
Well, is it sometimes frustrating? Yes. Can it be sometimes boring? Yes. But most of all, that's what writing is all about. And I'm conscious of the fact, or trying to be, that the book is getting better. So it's exciting for me to think, this time I've really turned a corner and it's really good. Uh, Writing is rewriting. And nobody writes anything very well the first time. Now, I'm not suggesting that you, for one of your papers that you hand in at school, rewrite something 70 times, but how many times usually do you rewrite something before you hand it in?
2 or 3 times.
Okay, but if you rewrote it a fourth time, it'd be even better, you know? Let me give you a tip. Let me ask you, and I'll ask the class, how many of you, when you write something, uh, hand it to your parent or your parents or a friend and say, here, read this and tell me what you think? How many of you do that? Okay, don't do that anymore. Here's a better idea. When you write something, go to the same person and with a pencil in your hand say, listen to this. Let me read this. And when you read it out loud, it turns you into a reader of your own book. And you will see that you'll be able to do self-correcting, if that's the word, to make it flow and read better. And when you can read something out loud, without any hesitation or changes, then you're in pretty good shape. But try that, and you'll see. But the rewriting process is really what writing is all about. I don't know any writer, any professional writer that I know who doesn't rewrite many, many times. It's simply the way it's done. Nobody, nobody writes anything well the first time. In fact, if you write something once and you think it's good, you're in trouble. If you write something and you say, you know, this isn't very good, that's a good sign because you're sensing that it could be made better. So think about that the next time you write something. Okay? Is that helpful? Okay.
Up next is Riley.
Hi.
Hi. Tell me your name.
Riley.
Hi, Riley.
Hi. We've noticed that a lot of your main characters are really teenagers. Why is that?
Well, you know, teenage. How old are you?
12.
12. Well, you're right at a stage where you're in many ways very adult and you have the capacity for many adult feelings and choices. You're capable of a lot more than you could do 2 or 3 years ago. Wouldn't you agree? And yet at the same time, I hope you'd agree, there's still a lot that you can learn and that you will be. So you're right in the middle of big changes in your life. And that's an exciting place to be. And so I like to put my books at right in that sort of middle of that place where all kinds of things might open out for you. I mean, can you imagine where you'll be 10 years from now? Do you know what you'd like to be 10 years from now?
No, I don't
No?
know.
Well, and you know, so the whole world is opening out to you. That's an exciting place to be in a story. So I guess that's why I chose that. Okay? Hi there.
Hi, my name's Keith, and this is my question. In many of your books, the main character is alone either from parents dying or being abandoned. What's the reason for your characters having to develop on their own?
I think it's just more interesting as a story. You probably won't admit to it, but don't you wish sometimes you could just strike out on your own and take care of things on your own, and yet at the same time you don't want that. So it's again like the last question. Um, you know, I'm writing a book now in which the main character does have her family, but she's called upon to do things that she has to keep away from her family. It's the nature of the story. And then the book I just published most recently, City of Orphans, uh, he's very close to his family and he's involved in his family, but it's an immigrant family and he knows how things work, in this case in New York City, better than his parents do. So he has to take charge. So there are all kinds of variations of that. I'm working on a book now that the boy is trying to discover some secrets about his parents that his parents haven't told him. Now he lives with his parents. He's very much fond of his parents, but they have a secret that he wants to find out. So he's doing it, but he has to do it on his own, right? Because they're not going to tell him. Makes for an interesting story, I think. So, okay?
You mentioned that you would improve all your books. What would you improve?
Well, you know, nobody writes a perfect book. I certainly don't. So I'm sure if I reread them, it's not as if I'd rewrite the whole thing, though. I guess that's possible. Maybe it's a paragraph, maybe it's a chapter, maybe it's just a phrase. Uh, but I don't write perfectly, and I don't know anybody who does. And I'm sure I could always find things to make it a little bit more interesting. That's all.
Hello,
Hi, what's your name?
Tori.
Hi, Dory.
No, Tori.
Tory, as in Victoria.
No, just Tori. My question is, do you follow a formula for your writing?
I hope not. I hope not. I suspect that if you read all of my books, you'd find certain things that I do over and over again, and I'd be happy to have them pointed out, and I won't do them again. But no, I do not find formula. There are a few things that I need. I know I need a good opening section of the book to get you caught up in the book. I like to do suspenseful stories. I construct my stories in such a way that you want to keep reading. So there's a structural formula that I probably follow, trying to make them as exciting and wanting you to keep turning the pages. But in terms of content, no, I don't think so.
All right.
If I could just jump. How difficult is it to maintain originality inside of your stories?
I guess my critics will tell me better than I will. The answer is I try each time. If anything, I write a lot, so my reputation as a writer is that my books vary a great deal from one to the other. In the current book that I'm writing takes place in the 1950s, and I'm trying to write it in a 1950s hard-boiled, as they say, style. And it's nothing I've ever done before, and it's tricky, and it's fun, and it's challenging. And I hopefully it works as a new way of telling a story. So. Hi.
How do you feel technology has impacted literature? Where do you see literature headed in the future?
I don't know if I could even answer that. I'm not somebody who has a big theoretical or an academic view of writing. I don't read enough of literature in the big sense of the word to discuss trends or what's happening. I just try to stick to what I can do. But there's no question that movies and video games very much have an impact on the writing. I think it has made readers much more impatient for action and for a story that moves along very fast. You read a book that's written today with a book that's written 150 years ago, and the energy in a book is much higher than it used to be. So it does impact. I try not to be too conscious of that. So, okay.
I'm just going to jump in one more time. You say that it's important. Sorry, we're clicking on this thing. You mentioned that there's impatient for action. How difficult would it be for you to take your books and move them over to, say, a graphic novel type medium?
I've written a couple of graphic novels, and they're really very interesting. I would say it depends on the book, very much so. The book that I think you could do any book as a graphic novel, strictly speaking. I mean, they've turned Shakespeare's plays into graphic novels. They've turned a variety of texts, and I've done it myself. So it's a very interesting form, and I like it a lot. As a kid, I was a great comic book reader, and comic books really fascinate me. They call them graphic novels today. But I don't know. It's interesting. I worked with an artist when I did these books, and it's a very complex process, but an absolutely fascinating one. I have no problem with that.
Out of curiosity, we have a big superhero theme in here. Preference for your comic book superhero?
Oh, Captain Marvel. But Captain Marvel, as it was when I was a kid, not the current Captain Marvel. It was pretty dull, but the old Captain Marvel, if any of you know who he was. So, hi there.
Hi, my name's Tessa.
Hi, Tessa.
We know that your children inspired you to become an author. Have they had any impact or influence on your writing or style of writing?
They're very expensive to keep. So I have to keep writing so I can support them. They're always asking for money, so that's an important thing, right? Uh, you know, in the sense that they bring in, or did bring in, because they don't live with us anymore. They're all grown up. But they bring in certain things. If you read a book like one of the Poppy books, the first one, Ragweed, there's the character there who skateboards a lot, and one of my sons was a really avid skateboarder. So a lot of the language comes from there. Or one of my kids are really fantastic skiers. So a book like Perilou the Bold, this is a fantasy in which these creatures, I don't know what they are, animals or something, have these big feet that they ski on and so forth. So, I mean, these things enter into my books, and I see what they were reading, and I interact with that. Or even a book like The Good Dog, which is about dogs, and it's all told from a dog's point of view. Um, and we used to live in a place where there, a ski town where there were dogs all over the place, and I thought that'd be fun to write about. So yeah, these things enter into my books a lot.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
That's,
You mentioned in your last interview that you had a rough relationship with your father, but great relationships with your stepfather. Do you feel that those personal experiences influenced your writing and ideas?
oh, yeah, absolutely. My father uh, was very much, he was a number of things, but he was very much opposed to my writing, uh, and used to make fun of it and tease me about it. He was not at all supportive. I'm not sure that he ever read one of my books. Uh, and he was sort of sarcastic and caustic, and a very self-centered man. So I didn't get along, and happy when I finally left the house and so forth. So sure, that influences me, and it influenced me as, you know, I'm a father myself. I tried to be what he was not, which was involved with my kids and much more caring, supportive, generous, and so forth. So sometimes as you grow up, you set yourself in opposition or different than one of your parents. That's certainly what I do as well.
Hi.
There. Tell me your name, please.
Austin.
Hi, Austin.
Hi. If you could be a character in one of your books, who would you be and why?
A character in one of my books? I don't know. Which of my books have you read? Read it?
The Good Dog.
I'd like to be McKinley. he, he's a good guy. Um, no, I don't know. A character like Bear, what's his name? Bear in Crispin is quite a wonderful character. Yeah, there are some character. Ben in Barn. He's a pretty sympathetic guy. So yeah, sure. I some of those people. So did anybody in The Good Dog strike you as somebody you'd like to be? Would you like to be McKinley?
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Yeah, he's our dog. That's the name of the dog. Big Alaskan Malamute. If he were here, I could show you a picture. But there you are. Okay, thank you.
Okay, have we pretty much exhausted all the student questions? Yeah, okay. All right, we're going to turn it over to a couple of the adult questions, if you don't mind.
No, sure.
Okay.
Hey, good morning, Avi.
Hi.
My question for you.
Can you tell me?
Sorry, my name's Mike.
Okay, Mike.
My question for you is, for you, is writing a lonely job, or do you work with your editor and other authors very closely?
Well, I work with my editors very closely, but you know, there is not here in Denver a real community of writers. I wish there were. I do miss that, but I have many, many writer friends. It is an isolating job. But to be perfectly honest, one of the reasons I like doing these Skype visits, I get to meet you. Here I am visiting Canada and interacting with you and your students, and that's part of what I do, and I enjoy that a great deal, and it's important to me. I get a lot out of this, just the interaction, and I'll sign off after a few minutes. We go on, and then I'll go back to work. But in some way, these questions will permeate my thoughts for the day, and sure. So this is part of my social life in a way. I'd rather be there with you, but uh, it's much more complicated. But at the end of this week, I'm flying to Switzerland to visit an American school in Switzerland, and that'll be fun. I've not been to Switzerland before, and so I'll get to meet kids there. And then I'm going to Italy, so I'm not a total social isolate. So, and I like to be with people. So,
How important is it to have a good editor when you're writing a book?
oh my goodness, it's like saying, what's it? If I said to you, how important is it to you have a good wife? It's very, very close. It's a system of enormous trust because they do make demands, and the interrelationship. A good editor makes you sense the possibilities of a book. A bad editor is very discouraging and hard. It makes a huge, huge difference. And I've had some wonderful, wonderful editors, and I've had some lousy editors too. So it's a huge, huge impact on the book.
And if I can ask one more question, at any given time, how many books are you writing, and how many books are you thinking about or planning?
Well, I can tell you right now, I'm essentially writing 2 books. There's another book that I started, which I'll come back to at a certain point. And I'm thinking about one that I know I have to write next year. And then there's another one that I'm planning to write. So how many is that? 5? Yeah, it's a rolling process. And it's not as if I'm at the same stage at all of them. But in order to make a living at this racket, you have to keep thinking ahead. It's a bit, I would think you as a teacher, I'm assuming you're a teacher, you're conducting this lesson, but you know that there's another subject coming up in another 2 hours or another group of students, and next week you have this class trip that you have to prepare for, and then there's where am I in the total curriculum for the year. So you're doing it's sort of a juggling act, and it's probably not very different than what you do in that way.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
One of the things that we come in as with teachers, when we find that we're giving students writing assignments, we always run into, I don't know where to start. Do you have any advice for any of the students who don't know where to start or don't know how to begin?
Yeah. Let me ask your students to raise your hands. How many of you watch television? Well, one of the things that makes writing difficult for you is how much television you watch. Because television becomes the primary way that you learn to tell a story. Not in a classroom sense, but that's your experience of story making. Whereas if you read a lot, then your experience would derive from the written word, and it's a very different system of storytelling. The hard thing about writing, and this is why rewriting is so important, you have to get it into your head that what you write the first time is never going to be very good. So it really doesn't matter what you write as long as you write. How to begin? You just start knowing that you're going to rewrite that, and knowing also that you don't have to share it with anybody. One of the problems that writers have, young writers, is, oh my God, what's my teacher going to think of this? What's my mother going to think, or my brother, or my sister? You don't have to share anything that you've written until you are ready for it. Sometimes the advice that's given to young writers is write what you know. And I'm not so sure that's good advice. I always say to people, write what you feel as something more important. So, how did it feel coming to school today? I mean, the fact is that coming to school today is probably not a great deal different than any other day. But did you feel different today? Did you have a cold? Are you worried about something that happened over the weekend? Or are you worried about something are you looking forward to something that's happening this week? It's what you feel that is the substance of writing, not necessarily what you do. So those are some things that I would suggest for you.
Okay, and on the flip side, we just talked about the beginning. How about the ending? How much is too much writing? And how do you know when it's the end of a book?
Well, it's partly at a certain point in a novel, you know you're aiming towards a certain point, and there's a certain sense of conclusion. But also bear in mind that this is a way I make a living, and unless I finish the book, then I don't get paid, so to speak. So you're aiming to finish the book, to get paid for the book. And if you've written well, all the threads in your story come together in a solid place. But it's often, you're talking about the editor. The editor will say, enough, you've got to this point, you've solved the problems that you've set up in the book. It is the logical conclusion. You don't think of writing as logic, but in many respects, the way a book is constructed, there's an element of logic to it. And so it all leads to a certain point if you've done your job well. And there's nothing more unsatisfactory as saying, oh, but what happened to X? Or you didn't solve this problem. You try to mold the book so it all comes to one point and it resolves in that way. And that's when you know that you're done.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Anyone has any pressing questions, concerns, anything? All right. When you last left us, you left us with some great advice about becoming a writer. I'm just wondering if you could touch on that one more time.
Well, what I'm convinced of, the thing that teaches you how to write most is reading. We don't necessarily think about it this way, but the grammar of writing, for example, is different than the grammar of speaking. There's a different grammar, if you will, about movies. There's a different grammar for the way songs are written, and so forth and so on. So you have to learn the language of writing and how things are communicated. And it's by reading. The more you read, the better the writer you can be. And if you don't read, I don't think you can write. I mean, you can't write music unless you listen to music. So read, and read some more. Read some more. And when you get all that reading done, you read some more. Get all that reading done, and then read some more. And that makes all the difference in your writing. So write what you like to read and enjoy it. The whole point of writing is not to teach a lesson, but to enjoy the experience that is contained in the story. So write a story that you would enjoy. That's the most useful advice I can give you.
Okay, if there are no other questions? All right. Thank you again for allowing us the opportunity. We love doing this type of stuff and really giving them a lot to think about. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for your questions, and you had really good questions, gave me a lot to think about. Better than most questions, I must say. So thank you, and someday let's do it again, okay? Bye-bye.
Trip to Switzerland.